Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I'm Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
The Callisto Protocol is
Mm-hmm.
a Dead Space style horror sci-fi game that's actually from the creators of Dead Space, which is I feel like where it
Mm-hmm.
got a little bit of a push.
A little bit.
So,
I think that's the whole reason anybody was interested
but
in it. To be
no,
totally honest.
because the thing that got this was it had a huge, really, really good reveal trailer. And I don't
That
remember
is
if it was
true.
at Game
Yeah.
Awards or Gamecoms or something.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a Keeley thing? But I think that trailer was so good, and I think it was one of those
Mm-hmm.
ones middle of COVID where everything just kind of felt a little flat. That it
Sure.
just
Yeah, that's
really
fair.
stood
Yeah.
out. So I think that's what really got it. And then I think like the press release after was like, oh no shit, that's the Dead Space people. Like
Mm-hmm.
it looks amazing because the game does. Like we can start there. The game looks amazing. It
Yeah.
is gorgeous looking in every possible way, environments, characters, everything, just gorgeous. But I think
Mm-hmm.
it had that look, and then it had the follow up of the pedigree that those people had. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it kind of got two little boosts there in the middle of COVID,
Sure.
where there was a lot of time for us to sit there and think, and not a lot of
Fair.
stuff coming
Yeah.
out. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it actually benefited from COVID, unlike a lot of other games, just
Yeah.
in its promotional cycle, if nothing else. So
Sure.
uh, to start with kind of the premise of this, the game starts with you on a spaceship. You're
Mm-hmm.
basically space delivery driver, and you're running things to the prison on Callisto, one of Jupiter moons, from Europa, one of the other ones,
Mm-hmm.
and something happens on Europa as you're in mid transport. There's this weird terrorist attack, and basically your ship crash lands on Callisto right outside this prison.
Okay.
Um, from there, you immediately get like knocked out by one of the guards in the prison, fitted with all of the prison stuff, and you are now a prisoner of
Does that make
Callisto.
sense in the game?
So here's so
I don't understand how a delivery driver. I mean, I get I don't know, how
so
does a
again,
delivery driver become?
what it turns into is basically that there's this weird conspiracy going on at this prison, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where all the horror creatures and all that stuff comes in. Is that this
Mm-hmm.
prison actually has some very nefarious behind the scene things going on.
Gotcha. Okay.
And basically there's this whole other side of the prison, and I don't want to get too much into it for
Sure.
spoilers. I will say that it is not a complex game, so what you think is happening is probably what's happening.
Sure.
But again, you're a pilot, ship crashes, thrown in crazy jail. That's basically the story, and the story from
Mm-hmm.
there is, but now get out of the prison that's full of crazy, scary monsters.
Sure.
And it's very much a okay, meet me at the tower in the middle. All right, we opened that door. Now meet
Oh
me
no.
at the next. And it's lots of like, get here. No, wait, go here. Oh, go here. Oh, but the door's locked, so if you could go back here and open the door. Okay, we got through there, but now go to here. So it's very much just to like get out of prison that feels very like here, now here, now here, now here, now here, without a lot of story beats outside of hey, get your ass out of prison and not
Yeah.
get eaten by crazy space monsters.
Does it feel like those? Because with certain games, they can kind of hide. Well, I probably don't know the answer to this question. With some games, they can kind of hide that sort of illusion of like we just need you to get here, and then we need the player to go over here. I think a game that does it really bad is the original is Doom 2016. Does a lot of that, like okay, come here for whatever reason, then go over here for whatever reason.
Yep.
So do they hide that at least with like any sort of like interesting twists or turns or anything like that, or is it just like so blatantly like oh shit we got to go here and all that? And it just kind of drags.
from the I think it's from the get go because the way you're just tossed in this prison by like really horrible people.
Yeah.
It just has that very bland like everybody's bad and everything is
Gotcha.
bad, and it gets really into like the bioweapon stuff. We're trying to develop bioweapons and
Yeah.
something, and it's just if you kind of took Dead Space, Resident Evil, all those things and congealed them into one, you got this.
It doesn't really have its own voice, kind of what you're
No,
saying.
not at all.
Yeah.
It's very much paint by numbers space sci-fi,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I mean, I didn't hate it. I don't want to sit here and say I hated it, but it's one of those where it's very much that okay, if you're into like space horror stuff, there you can go through the tropes and go okay, like I get it. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. okay. Oh, and I'm done. Okay. It is pretty short. I think 8 hours, 9 hours. I think I was front to back with it. No real slowdowns there. I think there was one boss that was kind of a pain in the ass, but
Yeah.
it's very much just run through the prison, run to the next building. Here's some secret areas.
But you didn't. I mean, just because our conversations, I don't feel like you felt that bland about it to begin with. I remember like you were like really hot on it to begin with. And you're saying like,
yeah,
and you're like, and then you're like, I don't understand what reviewers are talking about. This game's amazing, and now we're here.
It starts strong. It starts very strong. I think because again, it looks so good.
Yeah.
The first time you kind of see Callisto, you see these environments, you see the character models. The first time you're seeing a lot of this, hits a little bit harder because of how good it looks. It also starts much more horror survival than horror action.
Sure. Yeah,
so the first hour or two is much more devoid of combat and enemies than the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Once you kind of get and that's why I kind of don't want to get into spoilers, because I do try to hide a lot of stuff for the first little bit. A lot of it is just like a lot of like, what the hell's going on here? What are these monsters? It's a lot of that for the first 2 hours, which I think leads you to be much more, okay, what's going on? Okay. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay. And then once you kind of get like, oh, there's the evil CEO. Oh, they found something underground, like that type of stuff. And it just starts hitting that drag feeling of, all right. And then, oh, I'll bet there's going to be a point where, oh, and there it is.
Yeah.
Oh, and there it is. And to kind of go along with that, I think, because again, I did feel pretty good about this game for probably the first 2 or 3 hours, because this game got just dragged through the mud when it came out. Like, there was not a good word to be said about this. Mm-hmm. And those first 2 or 3 hours, I was like, I don't know what these people are on. Like, this is not a bad game. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
I think my initial impression, my initial thought 2 hours in was, this is what happens when a game from a new team that has some pedigree gets overhyped, is what I thought was the case. Is this is a case of everybody expecting this to be the reincarnation of Dead Space 2. Mm-hmm. And it's very clearly not from the get-go. But I think that my initial thought was, you don't got high expectations. Just be okay with a pretty good game. Yeah. But that first part, again, just to kind of re-emphasize why I think it felt good, the first part is a lot of one-on-one combat. This combat falls apart as soon as there's 2 or more enemies, which is the bulk of the end game, and everything from 30%
at some point.
Because there aren't a ton of bosses, and a lot of what they do is, instead of big giant monsters, we'll just give you more monsters. And the first couple hours is a lot of one-on-one fights, and the combat does not feel bad. It feels funky, and we'll get into why that is in a second, but it feels funky one-on-one, but it doesn't feel bad. It feels very, very bad when you start fighting more monsters at once, when there's more enemies on screen. Mm-hmm. And that just continues the more enemies that show up. It's a very clear curve of more enemies, worse combat. One-on-one, okay, we can make it. 2-on-1, but by the time you get to the end, when there's like 5 or 6 of them coming at you, I'm just gonna mash buttons and hope something good happens, because this is stupid. So going along with that, the enemy variety is not great. I think there are maybe 7 enemies in the game.
Jeez, yeah.
It's all, and Dead Space had that a little bit too, where it's like, these are your 5 or 6 necromorphs, and that's all there is, and that's fine. And even if you think like some Resident Evil stuff, it's like, okay, you really only have 5 or 6 zombies, but there's 7. They're not overly different. There's the quiet one, the big one, the normal one, just kind of your normal generic run of the mill. How can we play a slight twist on this character or this enemy? But
are they not fun? Are they like not the fun to fight individually? You're not, because I think the thing with like Dead Space, and even games where they have like, sometimes games where they have like not a lot of enemy variety, it's like at least those each individual enemies are uniquely interesting to fight at. Like even Dead Space 2 or whatever, I can think about like how the different enemies, like you cut them off weird, or like there's like little animal ones versus like big guys versus, and they all like there's like a little bit of a puzzleness to them, but like. Is the enemy variety, even though it's like little, it's like maybe each one's fun to fight individually, or no?
Not really. No, they're all they're all kind of the same thing, which is, so to get into combat, you have your big stick that you smash stuff, which is like a big stun baton thing. So you smash people with that, and then you have some guns, obviously. I found that the stick worked better than the guns most of the time. Melee worked better. It does kind of combine them with something that I thought was kind of neat, which was if you do a melee combo, if you hit it the right way, it'll add in a gunshot in there. So like you could like
Oh, that's
smack
fun.
it 2 or 3 times, stagger it, and then it does like it's almost like a quick time event, but it just pops up like a blue like lock on circle. So if you
Yeah,
pull fire at that, it's like smack smack fire, almost like a fighting game combo
that's kind of
almost.
fun. That's kind of
That
neat.
was
Yeah, yeah.
and then again that shows up early on when you're fighting one on one. I literally was like, okay, that's a neat idea. It's like, what? How can we work the gun into our melee combos? Because the
Yeah.
melee combos are what feel good.
Yeah.
The shooting itself is weird, and I guess the funkiest part, and I think this has gotten a little bit of talk other places, the dodge is weird. There's no dodge button. You just
Okay.
hold left or right.
Okay.
So
What do you
like
mean?
you kind of like strafe
Am I
a
like
little.
circling the guy? Yeah. So am I
Yeah,
like
you like
strafing?
kind of strafe a little bit, and then you just kind of look out and it dodges. It never feels good.
Okay.
Even initially, I couldn't figure it out. I think by the time you understood what it is, there's too many enemies to like actually be able to master it and figure out exactly
Yeah.
what. It just feels odd. So you're kind of strafing, but that's a dodge mechanic. It very clearly does a dodge because it won't do anything unless an enemy swings at you. So you're just
So
strafing
you
or
can't
walking like.
strafe. You can't
Well, no, you
strafe.
just walk like normal, and if you happen to be holding left when the enemy swings, your character will do a dodge animation.
Okay.
It's
What if
just
you hit it when? What if you hit it if they don't swing? Does your character move
he's
to
still
that
moving.
direction?
It's literally just like moving. It's like
Oh,
walking.
left or right? Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha,
it's
gotcha,
literally just
gotcha.
on the stick. It's not like L1, L2. It's not like a like
Oh,
you have to
weird.
identify sides. It's literally like hold the stick left, hold the stick
Strange.
right, and then back is to block. Which I don't know if there's some timing in that or what. I never got that one to work. But
Sure.
it's one of those decisions where it's like just put it on square. Let me hit square.
Yeah.
Let me hit circle. Let me hit a button to dodge. Because it feels like it takes all the control out of you. And again, when there's 2 enemies in front of you and one behind you, and you're just trying to walk to the left, and then all of a sudden you dodge, and it does the little dodge animation. You're not expecting it. It just throws it off. It's just
Yeah. So what happened? How does everything fall apart when there's multiple enemies? What's the thing of why it
there's no
does?
real lock on. You're
Okay.
just kind of swinging randomly at the first thing that's there. The enemies are like 3 or 4 times faster than you, almost all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't really have a dodge. It's one of those where you get hit and then you like stumble when you get hit. So if you're trying to
Yeah.
run to cover or something, one hits you, it stumbles, another one hits you, it stumbles, so you can't really run, which
Gotcha.
again, horror survival, that's in there a little bit, but this is very clearly going for more of an action element at this point. It just it never feels good to fight anything. You never
Mm-hmm.
have that sense of control. I never really had that thought of like, oh, okay, I know how to approach this fight.
Sure. Oh,
It's
okay.
always just I'm gonna go and swing randomly and hope I
Ugh.
hit something. And it's one of those where you would die, and I feel like I would do the same thing and just wipe the floor with everybody. And it's like
Mm.
I could not tell you what I did differently in died in 30 seconds versus got everything no problem walked through it.
It's really odd. It's really strange. Like it's weird. Like they don't have a lock in for like a mostly melee combat. And then even if you didn't have like good melee combat, you could just do the Dead Space controls or the Resident Evil 4 or like every third person shooter ever controls, and then don't worry about it, sort of
It
thing.
it feels like they just wanted to do something unique, which
Sure.
again go for it, but it just it didn't fit.
It is. I do feel like there's like a lot of games out there like they'll like add a new wrinkle to not be the thing that they're directly inspiring, but it's
Yes.
not a new wrinkle to improve it. It's just a new wrinkle for the sake of a wrinkle, which can
Yeah.
usually just be to the detriment of the game.
Which, I mean, you have that quick shot thing like there, whether it's like this nice little
That sounds
like
cool.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. There's also lots of quick time events. Lots of
Really?
enemies grab you and smash X to punch it off of you.
Whoa.
There's one enemy that actually drives me kind of crazy because it is does not stand out from the normal, just kind of like goopy, nasty stuff all over the walls, but it does the like shoot out like it's like long tentacle thing and start dragging you in,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to like mash triangle to like cut its head off or whatever, the thing that's like biting at you. But there is no real like warning or indicator. It's literally if you get within a
Yeesh.
certain distance of this thing, it just pops off. And
Yeah.
by the end of the game, I still could barely pick out, is that a thing or is that just a thing on the floor? And
Yeah.
it's lots of weird stuff where it's like if you made those more distinct, you didn't put it the quick time events, you put the dodge on a button, there's a game here, there is. And yeah, the story generic as it is, it's still a generic story. Sometimes is fine, whatever, if you've got some cool things going on. And again,
Mm-hmm.
there's enough with the way that it looks. It is, I think another thing that's been made a lot is that it is very intense, very gory. It is that very much and very much right from the beginning. And again, I think that's something that kind of stands out for it. Like, it has some things that stand out. It's just you made some weird calls along the way that just did not play out.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's so disappointing, because I remember when we were talking about before, we were always like, Dead Space remake is like, whatever. We've played Dead Space, we like that series, but like a remake is like whatever. And then we're like, Callisto Protocol is going to be the one. It's really surprising that Callisto Protocol turned out to not be the one. Yeah,
that's the general feeling, I think, is everybody's like, okay, I know what Dead Space is, I know where Dead Space went. Now we're getting something new, something fresh from the people who actually did that. We're getting another story from them, and it's just should have went with Dead Space.
And the remake is going to sell better, and it's just going to be more proof that old IPs are the way to go and not make new exciting stuff. So
don't have new ideas, don't try new things. It's not going to work for you. Just shut up and play your games from 2008 and be happy.
And I will be buying that Dead Space remake eventually. I know it's so gross. It's so gross.
And so will I. Yep, I will be looking for our review of that, and sometime in the next 6 to 12 months we get around to it.
After the first sale.
Yep, exactly. When you see that thing for $29.99, we'll be there soon. We are Workforce Gaming. You can follow us on Twitter at Workforce Gaming. Subscribe to us wherever you're listening, and we will see you later.
Bye.